You gonna start? Okay. All right, maybe we should get started. I know that many of you are carving time out of your busy schedule, so thank you all for being here. It's been an interesting journey, and I think that this is an opportunity to address some issues that I think that needs to be addressing. Particularly, many have asked, why are we doing it here? Why are we doing the press conference here? Because this is where it all began. So without further ado, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker. This is Kwa. She is my wife, and most of the time she has been very quiet and very supportive in the background. But this is an opportunity for her to express her experience and her story. So I'm going to jump right in. And for those of you who don't know, I am Steve Lee. And you did receive, most of you did receive a press release from me. And the organization AA-CLAD, that's Asian American Civil Liberties and Anti-Defamation. It is a civil rights group that has been formed to address any sort of inequalities, any sort of civil rights violation or any sort of discriminatory action by either government entities or individuals. So thank you very much. And we're going to turn this over to Kwa. Would you like me to hold the mic for you?
Oh, I can do it. Yeah, thank you. You're a refugee that should have stayed where you belong. Go home, refugee. Go back to your country. This isn't China. Who are the Hmong? Are they even real? Why are they appearing all of a sudden? These hateful words were posted on social media by Mayor Bobby St. Allen's and CSD Director Jacqueline Moreno's supporters when these elected women disparaged the Hmong community for political gain. Words that were inspired by Moreno's demand of the denouncing of the Hmong familial kinship system and St. Allen's offensive Facebook post referring to our respected elders as Klansmen and describing the Hmong familial kinship system as, quote, a controlling and intimidating system used to attack and silence these women. Clearly, with no knowledge of the complexities and nuances of the Hmong culture, instead of apologizing for their harmful words, St. Allen and Moreno continued to gaslight the Hmong community by using my husband, Steve Lee, as their scapegoat. It is not enough that the national political landscape of 2020 was fraught with division, misinformation, and ugliness. St. Allen, Moreno, and their accomplices brought a new low to political campaigning in Elk Grove. They made it acceptable to be extremely and incredibly cruel and hateful. They made Elk Grove a place for hate. With the support of their friends on the Elk Grove City Council and the Sacramento Bee editorial board, they perpetuated race-baiting stereotypes against the Hmong. The campaign for mayor is over, yet to this very day, St. Allen continues to attack my husband's character, attempting to erase the years of accomplishments and advocacy he has championed. St. Allen's continual dismissal of anyone that speaks against her as a Steve Lee associate, and vilification of the Hmong community is appalling. St. Allen's harmful and offensive words are hate speech. Jacqueline Moreno is a liar. She is dishonest and unfaithful. Instead of disparaging the Hmong, Moreno should have stood in solidarity with them and spoken out against the misinformation being used to attack the Hmong community. She benefited, along with then Team Elk Grove, the kindness and support our familial kinship system provided by preparing and delivering 10,000 bags with her campaign literature. Moreno needs to own up to her bizarre attraction to a campaign staffer and apologize to her husband, her children, and those she has deceived to believe that she is a victim. SD Director Rod Brewer can attest to this, as what he said to us then about this bizarre attraction is too shocking to repeat in public. Moreno belongs to a privileged group, a group where they can play victim or savior, whatever fits their narrative to achieve their goal. Moreno knows full well that her allegations of harassment by a campaign staffer were addressed at 2 meetings and something was done with her complete agreement. Those who know Moreno knows she cannot be forced to do anything she does not want. Vice Mayor Stephanie Huen, Councilmember Pat Hume, Councilmember Darren Soon, and retired Councilmember Steve Detrick. Shame on you, each and every single one of you. The trauma and hurt these elected have put us and our families through with their false narratives and rhetoric will have lasting negative effect on us, the Hmong community, and anyone that looks like us. Without a care or consideration to the harm and danger they put our family, our children in. They did everything possible to hurt us with lies and false allegations. We will no longer remain silent. We will speak up, and we will speak out against anyone, elected or not, who maliciously and intentionally perpetuate hate against our people and community. It is long overdue. Lastly, I would like to say this to our South Asian American communities, particularly the Sikh community. Bobby St. Allen will try to make this a conflict between our communities. Please hear and know this. St. Allen's derogatory words and shameless conduct are hers and hers alone. My husband and I have always said, many cultures, one outgrow, stronger together. We still believe and stand by that. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you, honey. Our next speaker is Sergeant Cox.
Let me wipe it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why I'm here this evening is because I was fortunate enough to be a witness at the kickoff campaign party for Steve Lee back in 2018. He was the only endorsement I had, and as you can see, I'm a woman, and he took a lot of heat for endorsing me. That evening at his kickoff party, I sat with Jacqueline Marino and her husband and children, where we had a lovely evening. There was no problems at all. I feel that if we were sitting together and talking all evening long, I would have heard something about the allegations that Steve Lee was not treating her fairly. Somehow I got dragged into it, and she wanted to shame my name for just being there and supporting my friend Steve Lee. And I'm not going to have anyone bully me, ever. I will never have Jacqueline Marino bully me. And I want to apologize to the Hmong community for everything that you guys have had to go through. And it's disheartening for me to listen to. And like I said, the reason why I'm here is I'm supporting Mayor Steve Lee and his family and his community. And I am a witness that night there was nothing going on. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Our next speaker is Mariana Batista.
Good evening. Good evening, I'm Mariana Batiste West. I'm here tonight in support of the Hmong community and Steve Lee. I was also present for his election in 2016 and his re-election in 2018. In fact, I went door to door in the same car with Jacqueline Moreno, handing out lit pieces and plants to the constituents of Elk Grove. I am also an Elk Grovian, so it's really important that I'm here because we have an issue in our community. Not only is it nationwide, but it's in our backyard. And we have politicians using a community as a platform to use for personal political gains to become elected as an elected officials. When we go to vote for our elected officials, we're hoping for transparency, honesty, truth, and a leadership that is going to lead us into the future with bright things to come for this community. How can you have somebody in a leadership gain their leadership through lies? Jacqueline Moreno did not once, out of all the time we spent together, tell me anything was going on, that she was having problems. In fact, she brought her daughters to the campaign site, and we all passed them out the plants. The current council that resides behind us are deceitful. They're dishonest. Their unlawful behavior, the smearing and the injustice among this community is a travesty. It's a travesty to this community and to this city. It is not okay. It is not okay to use a community as a platform and to brew up lies to get elected. Each one of them had to take an oath. You have to wonder what that oath really meant to them. If they're continuing with the same types of behavior that they were doing to get there. It's time for us to stand up for the Hmong community and for any other community that is being targeted. Everyone should be treated equal. We are all Americans, and we all are protected by the Constitution. Jacqueline Moreno, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Okay, our next speaker is Elk Grove resident and father, Coach Lee. Come on up.
Thank you, Steve. Everybody home here okay? And thank you to AA Clad for having me tonight, letting me share my story. So just a little bit about myself. I am an Elk Grove resident, but fairly new here to Elk Grove. I've only been here for about 15 years. I know that some Elk Grovians have been here forever. After a short stint in the Navy, my wife and I found a little townhome in Old Town Elk Grove. And then after a few years, we bought a home east of the 99, so in the east Elk Grove area. I still remember my first time meeting former Elk Grove Mayor Gary Davis. It was actually a night when a friend of mine was having a grand opening for his small business. Mayor Gary Davis came, spoke a few words, and then later on I had the opportunity to speak with him for a little while. And after speaking to him, it gave me some faith. I already knew Elk Grove was a beautiful place, very diverse, but then, it showed me, through talking to him that, this is a place where the leadership, the senior leadership engages with the community, that we have an opportunity to have a seat at the table. And that's why my wife and I then chose to plant our roots here, buy a home, and raise our family here. So to say the least, it was disheartening. Maybe even heartbreaking to hear then Mayor Bobby Singh Allen, in her bid for mayor, in her campaign, actually characterized the entire Hmong community as a misogynistic, oppressive clan system. And if you know me personally, my social media is reserved for funny memes and videos of my kids. You know, that's it. But you know, this touched a nerve with me, and I left a comment on Facebook. I left one comment, and I was immediately met with a response. A woman that was part of Bobby Singh Allen's campaign actually responded, and this is what she said to me. Speaking on competence, did your son get into college of his choice? And that was completely out of left field. Like, my initial response was, why even bring my son into it? How does she even know? Probably doesn't matter. Most people shoot for the stars. You know, maybe it's just common. Really strange, but whatever. And then she followed up with, wow, glad you found out today. I'll be glad to donate $1 to help him. Charity to the Tsam family. And that was just really strange because it sounded like she was trying to tell me something that she thought I didn't know. And why bring finances into this? But, you know, I love my son. I'm very proud of him. He's actually at Sex Day now. He's doing very well. He's going to graduate here very soon. So I just didn't acknowledge any of that. And sure enough, you know, this was in December when all this happened. A few months later in March, her employer contacted me. As it turns out, she worked for the California Student Aid Commission, and she had access to all his college choices and the amount of financial aid that he was awarded. And so they asked to hear my story. They wanted to know if I wanted to file a complaint. After a 3-month investigation, this is what they told me. On March 19, you filed a verbal complaint with the California Student Aid Commission, alleging that commission employee Linda Vu posted comments about your son and his college acceptance on Facebook. An impartial investigation into your complaint was completed and concluded that Ms. Vu did violate commission policies. This investigation is now closed and referred to the Human Resources Office. So, no matter what happened here, no matter what happened in this past election cycle, Elk Grove is still a beautiful place to live. If we see something we don't agree with, if we see a way to improve Elk Grove, we should still speak up. But I believe that we have the right to speak up and not be harassed, not have our private, confidential information blasted on a public place. And you know what Linda Vu did to me? That's just one example. She's the person that set this all off. She's the person that set off this entire string of lies. It shows you the character of the people that are all a part of this continuous string of lies. And I'm just one person. You know, this happened to many, many others who tried to speak up, who just said maybe just one word, and then they were later harassed and hounded. And so what I'm trying to say is, what Mayor Bobby Singh Allen did was wrong. What her associates, her attack dogs did was wrong. And I appreciate the efforts of Mayor Steve Lee tonight, the efforts of AA Clad and any other group that's trying to fight this. I hope that these wrongs are corrected. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you, Coach. Okay, our next speaker is an expert in the Hmong culture and has done a lot of work in the Hmong community. She was very kind to travel all the way here from south of here. And thank you very much, Dr. Maying, for taking this opportunity, and maybe you might be able to share a little bit of your studies and what you do.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. I'm Dr. Maying Lee. I'm an assistant professor of social work at CSU Stanislaus. And prior to coming to Stanislaus, I was the associate researcher and program manager for the Women and Girls Research Alliance at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, where I conducted research on how traditional Hmong leaders impact the safety of intimate partner violence in the community. Hmong traditional leaders, who are sometimes known as clan leaders, are more often than not representatives of their respective clans. They are an integral part of the fabric of Hmong community. And when called upon, they will mediate inter-clan conflicts, whether those conflicts are between individuals or families. In my work as the former founding executive director of the Hmong Women's Heritage Association, an organization, a Hmong women organization that has provided thousands of supportive services to Hmong women, it is really disheartening for me to hear about what happened to Steve. And it's also in that work is how I came to meet Steve. When I met Steve, he was willing to be on my board of directors, and he was the only Hmong man who ever served on my board during my tenure. Steve was responsible for many strategic, programmatic improvements that made Hmong Women Heritage Association one of the most influential Hmong women organizations serving Hmong families here in this region. Also in my work, I understood the importance of these community traditional leaders, and that is why I incorporated them into a clan advisory council. And with Steve's support on my board, we were able to improve our mediation processes by influencing these leaders to go through mediation training so that they could be current with mediation practice to inform their work. Steve has been an ardent supporter and mentor and someone who empowers Hmong women in the community. And so when I heard what was happening to him with all the misinformation and the slander that was thrown at him and the accusation that he was utilizing our traditional clan system, our traditional leaders, to silence Hmong women for speaking up against him, I spoke up in his defense with the record that he has shown and he has conducted with my organization. And on that alone, I was attacked. Letters and emails were sent to my university discrediting the work that I have done to support Hmong women and discrediting my life's work to empower Hmong women. This is really, really upsetting. I was also attacked on social media. Several occasions at an international platform when I was talking about support for Hmong women at the international level. These attempts at character assassination of the former mayor, Steve Lee, were no doubt politically motivated as they came during the re-election cycle and were pushed heavily by members of the opposing candidate's supporters. What was really upsetting for me was that not only did they attempt to slander Steve Lee with mistruths and misinformation, but by perpetrating these mistruths and misinformation about the functions of traditional leaders, they have directly contributed to the negative stereotypes of the Hmong community and further marginalize a community that has already been marginalized. This is unacceptable of any leaders, but especially as public servants. And so it is my hope that in the future, instead of breaking down communities, that we should build up communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
According to the Washington Post on March the 18th, 2021, anti-Asian hate has spiked 150% since the pandemic. Just because someone shares a surname like mine does not mean that they are my relatives. If that was to be true, then I would be related to Robert E. Lee, Spike Lee, and Bruce Lee. In fact, we all would be related because we share the same familial last name. And just because they look like me does not mean that they are my associates. Stop this ridiculous invalidation and accept your responsibility and acknowledge the harm you have caused. And do the job by hearing your constituents here in Elk Grove. Depicting Hmong Americans as misogynists, mafia members, Klansmen, yes, with a K, or statements like two Hmongs don't make it right by Mr. Pat Hume, Miss Jacqueline Moreno, Miss Bobby Singh Allen, attacking the Hmong community, have essentially painted Hmong Americans as villains and criminals. These false depictions are intended to hurt our community and fuel Asian hate. In the past year, I've witnessed Asian Americans' First Amendment rights be suppressed at local government meetings, giving me grave concerns for the conduct of government here in Elk Grove. This behavior by local government is a gross disregard to equal access and protection of their constituents wishing to express their grievances to their local elected. I have seen Asian Americans in Elk Grove be targeted with vandalism of their property. For example, their tires being slashed. For example, their businesses being target of graffiti with hateful messages. I've seen Asian Americans being targeted with frivolous lawsuits by associates of Miss Bobby Singh Allen just because they choose to stand against hate and injustice. But one thing to note is at this time, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Miss Stephanie Nguyen for confirming what I have always known to be the truth since the beginning. And I quote, "I know Steve Lee, and this is not a Steve Lee doing," end quote. I repeat, I have never sent any individual or groups directly or indirectly to harass or threaten anyone. None of these claims are based on any evidence at all. The irony of this is that leading the charge is Miss Stephanie Nguyen and her council colleagues, which push for a frivolous grand jury referral using city resources, resulting in nothing. Never mind the fact that Detective Jorge Benitez of the Elk Grove Police Department had already investigated the case, and also the police chief reporting at a city council meeting that nothing has been found and there is nothing and that the case is closed. If you took time, it took time for me to pause and reflect. But essentially, it is clear now that riding on the coattails of Asian hate served them well. And for the record, just because you are Asian, it doesn't mean you can't be able to spill hatred towards other Asians. We saw it here in Elk Grove. It is imperative that we come together and do something when we see something wrong. instead of the inaction that I have seen across this nation and in our own city. This past year, local politicians, under the guise of politics, have subjected Asian Americans to unfair treatment and has caused biased stereotypes that have harmed Asian Americans in Elk Grove. We stand today in solidarity. We have Americans here of different backgrounds. Either you came from this country 10 years ago or 200 years ago, as you pan across this crowd behind me, this is what Elk Grove is about. Folks from different walks of life, different backgrounds that come together because we're sick and tired of the hate that we see. We stand in solidarity because we stand in solidarity because we believe that standing together against hate and against anyone who abuses the constitutional rights of all Americans is wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a witness or a victim of any discrimination, please make sure you go to AACLAD, that's AACLAD.org, and file a complaint. A pro bono attorney or advocate will be assigned to you and they will contact you. As I've said many times before, Elk Grove is special. Many cultures, one Elk Grove, stronger together. To those who have always believed me, I want to take this opportunity to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Today, I've been vindicated and will be exploring other remedies available to me and also the Hmong community. Thank you all for coming, and I appreciate all of your time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, pero trong press conference, sau này rồi nào, okay. Thì có con nó cũng mà điสัมภาษณ์
Okay, nó nói nó thứ sáu này, mà nói họ press conference nhớ đâu pro, nhớ đâu lúc có ý liềnที่หนึ่งก็họ thật sự lúc có ý liềnที่ชั่วช่องphần người nhớ đâu pro này, họ press conference nó hạt cho đóตัวJacqueline Marino, là doตัว mayor ว่าอาชีพเราหมู่อาชีพแต่ฉันเนี่ยเราหมู่หายใจหายใจไปจ่อมองเลยอย่างสิ่งเนี่ยมองนะเนี่ยcho chỉ do là một trâu ở chỗ bên này mong là do hải sản trâu từ qua một mấy xí lì này hay thì qua một mấy xí lì nó bảo thì giờ chỉ trong là một trâu chỗ bên này mong là do làm chạy chui chỗ bên này là do lý do liên tại đây này sau họ để nó là một khe to hay thì nếu chỉ do ít tu liên tại vì do cái giá cả là do cái tuấn sâu là một nơi từ khen và từ bên này nó cho họ thì thời nó mình kiếm rồi từ ở group này là cái này tu người hungry for power cái này là giá cả là do chẳng là mình sẽ hay thìเพราะมันไม่ใช่ลีนี้ทุนนึงเพย์วิหารเดียอย่าเลี้ยงนะอย่าเลี้ยงใจว่าในเรามันเขียเอาก็ไม่ใช่ที่ไหนโซ่นี่เที่ยวเลยเยี่ยเหี่ย
là cái gì hả?
กินมื้อนั้นกินในกาตอนต้องกินในกาจะเป็นเด็กเดี๋ยวมันนอนกินมันนอนนี่คือก็คือสายจ้าสาวผู้โจเลยจะได้ยังชัดดอกเดียวเนี่ยโยมเปอร์เซ็นต์หายจะเป็นหมดเดียวนี่ชุดมองไม่หมดใจยักษ์ต้องเกิดกินยังมันเดี๋ยวจบที่จะ
I don't vote for idiots. That's why she got elected. So I wasn't an idiot to vote for her. Does that make sense? That makes sense. I don't vote for idiots. I vote for people that know what the hell they're doing. Same idiots that voted for Trump is the same idiots that voted for her. You know, we need some smart people, man. They need to do something. Have some common sense. So good.
I represent the parent coalition. You know, I do a lot of stuff at the school. So we wanted to come out and support you. Yeah? No problem. So we're all behind you. So we're here to support you. And, next year's important for us, so hopefully we'll get your support. Yeah, you know? All right. All right. Hey, good luck. Thanks,
Can I have a picture when you're done?
Yeah. Shall we take off our mask?
Yeah, take off mask. You can hold your mask in your hand.
When was the last time you had two John Kennedys that you could take a picture of?
I know, that's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. It's a great district. Thank you,
Happy day. Happy day.
Hey Steve, what's for dinner, man?
What?
What's for dinner?
I don't know. I don't know. Let me check it. What's cooking?
Well, you better let me know after this. I came all the way from work for this.
I can cook with you. I'm serious. I can cook with this in my car. Oh, just my car, sir. So this kid, you're going to call me anytime. Matter of fact, I can cook too. This is my son, John Kennedy.
How you doing?
Say hi, son.
How you doing? What's going on? Don't worry, folks, man.
So David-
A booster shot, 2 vaccination. How's okay? So don't look at me because I don't have a mask. I got this, all right? So there you go. You have nothing to worry about. All right, let's just get that out in the open now, so that way you don't look at me strange.
Thank you.
You don't look at me kind of like a weirdo.
Say, hey, I just want to make sure that next time
already
I
vaccinated
see
3
you,
times,
so I
so
remember
yeah,
who
nothing
you
to worry
are.
about.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Mom.
Huh?
I hope this pizza, cause like always, he always bring the pizza in the morning. Not pizza, and today we just had pizza, but I don't need.
What you doing like that? Stay still.
Okay.
Stay still. Stay still.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
To be here and have her tell it to her face. That would have even been better. That would have been the best thing that anybody would have done. I would have paid for that. I would pay $1,000 to have her be here. I'd pay $1,000 just to see that. I ain't gonna happen.
Okay. Oh, I also have my key, my work key.
Let's see what happens. I got a $15,000 increase on my
Let's sit in the back.
Okay, for press conference, Lamu Saudi Nosi, and then what you running to the Lamu the Kel Shape in it. Mana for press conference, yeah, go Patu to Japan Marino. When you go, not a minute, Lamu here, do have here. From a may see the Neej to singing or when you pick on home, cho chị dòng và nè anh chị nè cho chị dương là do cho chu cái bên nè
Do you have my closet? Just in case you want to call me. I also need help in
All Daddy just do is just make people call him.
you call me anytime.
you know him
My name is Joe. I don't have a pod.
It's okay, you can leave it on mine. Then I have your name and your phone number. I have it.
really good